Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode here at the Debate Circle. We are graced in the Mount Kenya region and we cannot wait to see who the winners of this region are. In today's motion of dissection, the motion reads, the culture attitudes towards money in the African society are the biggest impediment to economic progress. I read the motion of dissection again. The culture attitudes towards money in the African society are the biggest impediment towards economic progress. Proposing and opposing this motion is Kiriaini Girls Secondary School versus Kiaguthu Boys Secondary School. All the best to both teams. Team proposition first speaker, you have 3 minutes.
From the stormy sides of mountain Kenya, it's St. Angela Kiriaini Girls, the wind and thunder itself, Elizabeth Gakunga, here to propose the motion that states that culture attitudes towards money in African society is the biggest impediment towards economic progress. Let me ask, what is culture? Let me tell you. Culture is the social behavior of people in a particular way. And what about attitude? This is how someone internalizes things of their day-to-day basis. For example, I might hate the cold. Say, ugh, I don't want the cold. Say, yes. Say, you. Imagine that's an attitude. That's the attitude we get from what we usually participate in. And African society is the collection of people united by different things like tradition, culture, or even religion. For example, I'm Christian. That unites me to other Christians in the world, doesn't it? It does. And impediment. This is hindrance, an obstacle, something that has to be overcome, something that stops progress. Economic progress. This is the improvement of standards of living with the people. For my first point is, usually in African society, we normally have a great emphasis, not even great, a strong emphasis on community and sharing. Sadly, it is not helping us in most of the ways. Since because of this sharing, investments are rarely made. I give you what I have today. What about tomorrow? Won't you still need something? I give you what I have tomorrow. I still require that thing. But what if I use that money I gave you, or that thing I gave you, that item I gave you to invest? Won't it have helped you in a better way? Won't it have built a job, businesses? That will have given you a long run. It will have helped you in the long run, I mean. So, due to this, most people ignore that fact. They expect you give me now, and I expect it now. Sadly, due to that, our investments are low. We are unable to proceed in our economy, and we have all shut our eyes to this. There's a quote that says that to build an empire, you have to be selfish. We as Africans rarely realize that fact. That's why we lack so many empires. And as I finish, we all have to build our empires. So be selfish in one way or another. Thank you.
To be or not to be is the question William Shakespeare asked himself, and it's the very questions we will ask ourselves at the conclusion of this motion. Today, I, Mekas Mureithi, from Kiaguthu Boys, stand as a firm antagonist to the motion that says that the cultural attitudes towards money is the biggest impediment towards economic progress. My rival has stated that an impediment is a hindrance, a barrier that needs to be overcome. And the motion has stated that cultural attitude is the biggest, I repeat, biggest impediment. The cultural attitude is in fact not the biggest impediment. There are other factors that greatly outshadow cultural attitudes. One such factor is political instability. Political instability is a situation where the political state of the country is in disarray. So like there's high crime rates, there's violence, war, deaths. This creates an unfavorable business culture, business environment. The business environment is directly affected by the policies of the government, right? Meaning that with the political instability, there's an unfavorable government environment, unfavorable business environment, which will hinder foreign investors from investing in Africa. The hindrance of foreign investors will cost Africa, since the African economy, the factors. An unfavorable business environment will be cost. Foreign investors help the economy of Africa to strive, develop, and grow. Hence, with their hindrance, the economy of Africa is left to stand on its own two crippled legs, which will not survive, and the economy might as well collapse. Another factor that also acts as an impediment to the economic progress is the global economy. Africa is integrated in the global economy. This means that Africa is exposed to foreign shocks in the economy through price fluctuation. Africa, for example, it imports a lot of crude oil. If the countries that export the crude oil towards Africa decides to skyrocket the prices of crude oil, Africa's economy will not survive. It will be greatly devastated, and it will shatter. This, as you can tell, will cause the African economy to crash, and it will not be good at all. Hence, if the whole economic progress of Africa can be influenced by other global factors, that means that the cultural attitude is in fact not the biggest impediment, since the global economy greatly outshadowes it. I'd like to rest my case.
Well. I guess I'm almost sick with worry. It's I, Esther Wangari from St. Angela Kiriaini Girls, here to propose the motion that states that cultural attitudes towards money in African society are the biggest impediments on economic progress. As you've heard from the opposing sides, political stability is brought about cultural attitude towards money. But that cultural attitude that we all have, most of it is corruption. Let me try to emphasize mostly that the effects of corruption on our progress of African society is led by leaders. And according to researchers of the University of Nairobi, it's located that 47 counties are facing corruptions by only our political leaders. I have a question for you all to ask yourself. The missing money, who pays it back? Because it is located that those political leaders don't face any consequences of that money that is lost or missing. And according to HPTS NTV Kenya, CO Kenya, is according to November 2022, that theft of public funds is top crime in all the 47 countries by the government, according to EACC. So, if corruption is hindering all of us to economic progress, where does political instability comes from? Another thing that also has affected our economic progress is the underemployment and unemployment in our country. Most of our youth are lacking jobs. And according to 2015 and 2016, Kenya Integrated Household Budget Survey data is established that according to the youth of age 15 to 34 lack job. And if you lack job, where do you leaders get the money to pay us or even get the tax to rate us? So, all of us need to understand that if our youth doesn't get any employment or we underrate them, there's no way that we can lead our economic progress. We all know that the progress of our country mostly is tourism and also agriculture that has led the economic growth of our country. As I conclude, I would like to ask you, what are we doing as Africans? Us as African, what are we doing to ensure that our economic progress of our country or our state? Thank you.
Oh my, oh my. As I walked on stage, I could hear the opposition team say that I'm a doctor. I don't know why. Or maybe it's simply because they believed I could heal them from the resistance of this motion. I, Malik Njage, from the great dynasty of Kiaguthu Boys School, here to firmly stand against the motion that states, cultural attitudes towards money in African society are the biggest impediments to economic progress. On my first point, resilience and community support. Most African cultures have a way of believing that believing in communal welfare as well as mutual support for individual financial welfares as well. That basically this provides a protection barrier to individuals, especially during the economic hardships and financial crisis. And this has been proven effective because they are able to support individuals who are facing these problems. For example, when the country had gained independence back in 1963, it faced a huge declination in its economy. This was because of the division in the colonial bondage that was set by the colonial masters, that is the British. But one man, that is Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, came up with an initiative to counterfeit this issue. He came up with the Harambee philosophy. This philosophy agitated for the necessity to gather resources so as to enable and improve towards the country's economic growth. And this Harambee philosophy this kind of ideology was adopted by various communities, which have also been proven effective in that communities have found it well enough to be able to come together and contribute resources so as to be able to benefit certain individuals who are also undergoing through this financial crisis. And moving on to my next point, entrepreneurial spirit and adaptation. Most African cultures have been proven to exhibit strong entrepreneurial spirits, especially towards businesses. That we find that most Africans have used their traditional knowledge, cultural networks, as well as local resources so as to establish successful businesses. For example, I believe the audience is well familiar with one of the most influential factors that are contributing towards the prosperity of this country's economy. That is the Juakali industry. And simply this Juakali industry has agitated for the necessity on using local resources in our environment and using that kind of resources so as to be able to help and so as to be able to contribute towards the economy and helping it to achieve economic greatness. Thank you.
Love, love, love. Do you know what love is? I'm a girl madly in love. But I'm once again heartbroken from our economic progress in this country. I'm madly in love with my country. I'm standing tall on stage, disappointed as Jemario Osindi from the blue oceans of St. Angela Kiriaini girls, wondering why they're coming here just to yap around and make no sense. You know, corruption is the enemy of development and of good governance. So, as my fellow colleagues said, corruption is brought about by the culture attitudes that we have towards money, isn't it? It is. Also, unemployment is brought about by the same cultural attitudes. And it is already proven that corruption is one of the greatest impediments we have in our country, we have in our continent, Africa. The EACC has received at least 1,000 337 grafts, allegations that touches on country and county government in the last 2 years. Even after it was announced, a recovery of assets worth 23.74 billion in the last 5 years. EAC revealed all this, yet was any action taken? No. Our leaders who are up there are the ones who are leading us to have a great impediment in our economic progress, brought about by corruption, unemployment in our youths. You see, our youths are, yes, they're getting jobs right now, but the jobs they're getting, they're not vulnerable at all. They're not earning them any money. So our economic progress is getting lower and lower each and every single day. Yet you're coming here to oppose that cultural attitudes and not the biggest impediment? Who does that? If you're feeling what I'm saying, just say ish. Thank you. So, I would also like to add that corruption is also a cancer. A cancer that eats away a citizen's faith in democracy. It diminishes their instincts for your innovation and creativity. Imagine a situation that my father, Mr. Cindy, has a friend, Mr. Obuku. Mr. Obuku has 7 children. And each and every time, he is not paid enough money because of the money that the leaders are corrupting with it, the bribes and all that. Yet, you expect Kenya to get to a better place? I don't think so. I still not rest my case. I'm just simply asking you to join our side with open arms. Thank you.
Change is not change unless those who are there are willing to change. That is the law of change. I, Isaac Ndongo, from the great Kiaguthu High School, a strong antagonist to the motion that states the culture attitudes towards money is the greatest impediment to economic progress. On to my first. The team proposition spoke that they are the wind and thunder. I think we've not seen you thunder. I think that is not wind to us. We have to hear you blowing. You spoke of corruption. Oh my, corruption. Corruption is not part of you. Do we have anyone written corruption on the face? Do we have anyone written corruption on the face? This is a rhetoric question that we have to continue asking ourselves. They say that corruption is an impediment towards our country. We saw that from 1999 to 2005, I, being a business student, calculated the GDP and found out that it was an increase by 75%. Didn't our economy grow? Didn't our economy grow? You spoke of unemployment. We've seen our president, he's an African, go to states out there to look for employment for our youth. We don't refuse that there is no employment, but we know that we are in Africa. For every place in Africa, there have to be a master and a server, right? There must be those people that are leading and those people to be led, right? So I think that unemployment is not a problem. It's only that in our continent, Africa, our leaders are really striving to look for employment out there in countries where natural resources are being fully utilized. Then, the first speaker still spoke of land, communal ownership of land. According to a research done by www.tv47kenya.co.ke, it showed us clearly that land stopped being communally owned. Nowadays, people are owning individual lands. We've seen Kikuyu. The Kikuyu are one of the greatest business people in our country, Kenya, right? Have Kikuyu not stopped? Is it that all Kikuyus have thrived because of their culture, that they must thrive because they come from the Kikuyu land? We've seen Lupita Nyong'o, a person from Western Kenya, thrive. She has been one of the people to thrive. Did it did her culture make her not thrive because only she came from a Western Kenya, and Western Kenya did not value ladies? Of course it did not, right? I think I am asking my fellow learned colleagues here, the proposers, to join us in opposing the motion, and we shall have a great Kenya. I rest my case.
For us to actually make the SDG number 8 work, which is decent work and economic growth, there must be policies that support job creation and growth of enterprises. And the moment that we realize this, the moment that we actually come up with great jobs for our youths, the moment that we accept corruption and make solutions to change it, I think that that is the most thing that will make our Kenya growth, domestic production actually grow. So yes, help us support this and make a greener pasture for our Kenya, from it to turn to hell into a great heaven. Thank you.
I'm in a state of shock and disbelief that our proposers are still resisting the motion. I am here to tell you that the government introduced CBC to create employment opportunities for Kenyans as people, and are bettering our education systems to ensure that Kenya will have to work everywhere in this country. I am here to politely ask all of you, to ask my fellow proposers to join us in the opposition side and say that that culture attitudes towards money is not the greatest impediment to economic progress. I rest my case. Thank you.
The culture attitudes towards money in the African society are the biggest impediment to economic progress. Saint Angela, your assignment was one. Which are those culture attitudes in the African community? I expected things like, the black tax, believing in materialism, corruption, where Africans believe that you eat where you live, Africans being staunch believers of communism with solid illustrations. Did that come out? Not really. Kiaguthu boys, you brought on board other aspects like, the global economy, political instability. What could have made the pudding better was giving us specific illustrations to back up our arguments. Very quickly, Elizabeth, you gave us clear definition of terms. However, don't take a lot of time defining everything word by word. Just focus on the key terms, because you have 3 minutes to make your presentation. So defining every word will eat into your time.